तनुते गिरिवरविन्ध्यशिरोधिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरधर्षिणि दुर्मुखवर्षिणि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि कल्मषपोषिणि घोषरते तनुजनिरोषिणि दिविसुतरोषिणि दुर्मदशोषिणि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जगदम्ब मदम्ब कदम्ब वनप्रियवासिनि हासरते शिखरि शिरोमणि तुङ्ग हिमालय शृङ्गनिजालय मध्यगते मधुमधुरे मधुकैटभगञ्जिनि कैटभगञ्जिनि रासरते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते शतखण्ड विखण्डित रुण्ड वितुण्डित शुण्ड गजाधिपते त्रिभुगजगण्ड विदारण चण्ड पराक्रम शुण्ड मृगाधिपते निज भुज दण्ड निपातित खण्ड विपातित मुण्ड भटाधिपते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते ऐरण दुर्मद शत्रुवधोदित दुर्धर निर्जर शक्तिभृते चतुर विचार धुरेण महाशिवदूतकृत प्रमथाधिपते दुरित दुरीह दुराशय दुर्मति दानवदूत कृतान्तमते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते शरणागत वैरिवधूवर वीरभराभयदायकरे त्रिभुवनमस्तक शूल विरोधि शिरोधि कृतामलशूलकरे दुमि दुमितामर दुन्दुभिनाद महोमुखरीकृतते मकरे जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते कृतिमात्र निराकृत धूम्र विलोचन धूम्रशते समर विशोषित शोणित बीज समुद्भव शोणित बीजलते शिव शिव शुम्भ निशुम्भ महाभवतर्पित भूत पिशाचरते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते संकरण संग परिस्फुर कंगनटत्कटके कनक पिशंग पृषत् कनिशंगर सत्फट शंगहता बटुके कृत चतुरंग बलक्षितिरंग गटत् बहुरंगरटत् बटुके जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते तथेयि तथेयि कृताभिनयोदर नृत्यरते कुकुतो गडदादिकतालकुतूहलगानरते धीरमृदङ्गनिनादरते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय जप्य जये जय शब्द परस्तुति तत्पर विश्वनुते भण बण भिञ्जिमि भृङ्कृतनूपुर सिञ्चित मोहित भूतपते नटित नटार्धनटी नटनायक नाटित नाट्य सुगानरते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते वै सुमन 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 सुमनोहर कान्तियुते श्रुतरजनी रजनी 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 करवक्त्रकृते सुनयन विभ्रमर भ्रमर 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 भ्रमराधिपते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सहितमहाभवमल्लम्
A warm welcome and wishing the best of the day ahead and a very happy Dasera to all delegates uniting with us today on this online platform for Week 14 Build Bharat, Safe and Secure India, a 25-week series which has commenced from 26th of July 2020, a purely knowledge-sharing webinar series successfully progressing each Sunday. We are overwhelmed for all your support, patience, and time for connecting with us today. We are sure you will find this worthy and are excited to attend the webinar. In case of any questions or query arising during the webinar, we request you to please type in using the Q&A section or raise hand. During the webinar, also keep an eye on the chat section for links on our previous sessions and to join our East Core group community for case studies, pocket guides, advisories, newsletters on fire safety security. We have our group CEO, Mr. Hemant Khadse, who will lead this session. Let us proceed the session with a small prayer.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Come on, chant this mantra. असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Very good morning, everyone, and wish you happy Dashera to all of you. Uh, it's a Sunday morning, and that too, it's a festival day. But I really appreciate of taking your time out and be with us. I'm sure this will really be
informative and at the same time useful for all of you, spending 1 hour plus with us. As we just mentioned in the beginning, it's been a very promising journey for all of us. Coming to the level of week 14 now, we already passed half of our series, and a lot of people who are actually getting benefited and complementing this initiative. So we really thank you for their contribution and participation both. Many people have actually missed out. They are coming in and out. So make sure that they are connected with our group. The link is available in the chat option. At the same time, in case you want to revisit, recapture, you can always go to our Facebook Live. Our website will have that link where you can go to either Facebook Live or YouTube Live, where you can revisit all our previous sessions so that you can get a continuity of it. Because what we are taking all the topics is all interrelated, and it is important that you should not miss the link. So in the beginning, uh, I suggest, I request all of you to be consistent with dedication of 1.5 hour every Sunday. I'm sure it will really change your entire mindset, and that's what we mentioned in the beginning. It will awaken your mind, because all of us know that there is a gap in the industry and knowledge is a gap. So how can you bridge that gap? And this is how you need to bridge the gap, by sharing and gaining the knowledge and awareness about the topic, which is fire safety security. Every day and day and out, we are finding the incidences, accidents, and knowledge is the weapon wherein you can actually beat and mitigate the risk that we always exist. So let me just recapture the security management strategy that we started uh, 2 weeks before, typically, and we started with the fundamental of understanding what is the security management and how uh, it will help everyone, whether you are into business or whether you are into functional or operational aspects, how this knowledge can actually help you in either preventing your life or protecting somebody's life and property. So this is how the entire series that we have started, and specifically last three sections that we are trying to cover is on security management. So what is this security management? And we started with giving the background about how this security management can start with risk assessment. So we also looked at the parameters like what is the risk, what is the threat, what is the consequences. Because unless until we are conversant with basic fundamental of those acronyms, doesn't matter you are not from security background, maybe you are from fire background, or maybe you are from operation or administrative background, but risk is always with you throughout the day, 365 days. So unless until you get conversant with that philosophy or um, element, will not be able to beat with that risk or um, threat that we perceive or that we see in and around. So we looked at those aspects, and basically what we have seen is that it's like a circle which is overlapping to each other, wherein threat, vulnerability, and asset is actually the combination of risk. So that is what we looked at risk as a element. And when you look at risk management or a risk assessment, they are all interrelated. They are not something very hi-fi or word, but basically what it means that if suppose you are working in a any environment, it can be commercial, residential, or industry place. You have to analyze and ask yourself what can go wrong. What are the chances or probability that it can go wrong, and what are the consequences of those elements that can go wrong. If you get these three questions answered, then that becomes nothing but risk assessment in a broader and a very, very uh, uh, large perspective. I'm just giving this example. So when you are asking these three questions, it is basically nothing but identifying the risk, measuring the risk, quantifying the risk, and evaluating the risk that you have in and around. So when you are mentioning that risk can be anything. I mean, right now our topic of discussion is physical security, and that's how it can be related. But this is a general philosophy, and the risk can come from fire hazard, can come from gas leak, can come from chemical hazard, or from anything. So we need to understand as a responsible person in the workplace what can go wrong, what are the chances of that it can happen, that can go wrong, and if at all it happens, what are its consequences. And we in fact ask you to revisit yourself, asking this question, and identify, did you get any answers looking at your facility. Taking that further step, we also looked at the extension of risk assessment is risk management. So what it essentially does or asks is that once you identify the risk assessment, what it can be done. Once I know the risk, what can be done to deal with it? What are the options available in front of me against the resources that I have? And what are their associated trade-offs in terms of cost? If I suppose invest to mitigate it, what is my cost involved? What is my risk involved? And what is my benefit involved? So is my benefit higher than my cost, or it is lesser than my cost? So again, this is what a trade-off that you need to take before you actually try to mitigate that risk that you perceive. And then lastly, in terms of risk assessment, we also looked at what are those impacts of current management decisions. If in case I don't do it, or in case I do it, what is my consequences or or impact in terms of my current management that I see based on the options that are available, based on the resources that are available. So once you have these answers of these questions, you get to know in overall risk management perspective, and it can be done very, very systematically. It need not to be just by asking these four questions your risk management gets fulfilled. It's a very, very holistic way of doing it. It's a formal way of doing the things, putting into all perspectives, and we'll analyze all your elements based on your occupancy or based on your nature of business, and that's how you are trying to identify the risk, and you are going to mitigate that risk. So in general, basically, when you're looking at this risk as a risk component, what is it that we are trying to do? It's basically like we are trying to, once you identify the risk, once you have the mitigation plan, is basically preventing an attack, which is going to be by detecting it before it's underway. So in case I perceive that risk or theft in my facility, how do I deal it, or how can I reduce that occurrence, or how can I prevent that attack or that incident so that I can protect my life and property? Then once I prevent it, how do I protect it, and then how do I in fact go ahead and reduce those consequences in case that happens? Still, there won't be any major impact or a less impact to the overall facility that I have. So this is what overall perspective that we looked at it, and also we uh, uh, gave you the mathematical formula of the risk. Just to, as a layman, if suppose the risks have to be identified in terms of physical security, then what is its combination of? It is nothing but a combination of your threat, consequences, and vulnerability. So all three components put together becomes your risk, and that's how you need to identify when you're doing a risk assessment or risk management. Essentially, you're trying to bundle all these three elements so that you can get to know what is the consequences, or what is the vulnerability, and what is the theft that I can perceive um, in my facility. In fact, we also looked at in brief, there are many people in this forum right now, in this room available, where they are conversant with risk assessment or uh, 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 risk study as such. So there are various terminologies people still use and they get confused sometimes. So we also give a little clarity that if suppose you have uh, you are in a hospital, and in a hospital typically we must have already overcome and seen that incident had happened that the patient relatives, because of some obvious reason, they attack the doctor, right? So if you look at this hospital as a scenario, as a hypothesis, and then this incidents that can happen, then how do I do it? How do I deal it? So suppose if you consider as a only um, vulnerability study, or maybe let us look at the uh, threat assessment. I mean, we started with threat assessment. What is the threat assessment that it does? It picks up only threat as an element out of that three elements what we looked at as a risk. Risk is a combination of consequences, theft, and vulnerability. So when you are doing a theft assessment, you are just picking up one element out of three, and that's how you are focusing on only theft that can happen. That means theft here in this hospital is that attack to the doctors. I mean, that's how we perceive as a threat. And you subsequently go more detail into the analysis of that theft, uh, and then you end your study, and that becomes your theft assessment. Vis-a-vis, if you look at the vulnerability assessment, it will go into the further step that okay, if suppose there is an attack that can happen on the doctors, how many doctors can actually get be coming under the radar, and what is the consequences of that attack that can happen. So I'm attaching the vulnerability of that attack and then consequences of that attack on the doctor. So it becomes the vulnerability study. So both are independent, and that's how there are many applications in your organization that you may have to do only threat analysis there, you may have to do only vulnerability assessment there. Let us use the assessment as the right word rather than study. So when you are looking at these two, you have to look at this with a clarity that I'm going to be getting the capturing only the theft element here. In the other element, I may get capture the vulnerability plus consequences. There is another concept which is common in the industry. It's called business impact analysis. Again, it captures the risk that exists in our organization. Like COVID, today we are in a situation of a COVID, and there are many organizations now looking at conducting the business impact analysis. Now, business impact analysis is good to again pick up only one element out of the series with consequences. If that event happens or that situation occurs, what is the consequences and how I'm going to deal with it? And this is essentially nothing but a business impact analysis or business continuity management that is an outcome of business impact analysis that can come. So it is only picking up the consequences as one of the elements. But overall, if you look at it, even the security audit, that is also one of the common element that also exists, which is a fourth dimension to it. But again, it captures only one element, and what is it? It's a vulnerability aspect. So when you are looking at the scenarios in any of the hospital, like what we discussed just now as a hypothesis, if your hospital is more vulnerable for the attack, then the security audit will only capture that vulnerable, and that's how it will help for your entire ecosystem or making the risk management plan as such. So if you look at it, you can actually have an option to look at in pieces or all put together as a bundle. But the moment you do use the risk assessment or risk management, essentially it has to capture your risk, your theft, your theft consequences and vulnerability, and that's how it becomes a united function as the risk assessment, and that's more broader, that's more detailed, and that's how people actually can help and develop their security management plan as such. So this is what overall we looked at the aspect of the risk assessment and the security management, how it goes as the function. So any questions so far? Uh, any questions that you may have, you can always uh, pop up your hand and do it. In the meantime, let me just run the poll so that we can just refresh ourselves and get to the discussion further of today's topic, which is the security design element aspect. So this is a question right now you can see on the screen. A degree of protection desired in any installation is predicted upon an analysis of the following two factors. Well, it's a little longer question, but then you have to see the answers combination with. Is it a combination of a cost and environmental condition? Is it a combination of criticality and vulnerability? Is it a combination of cost and vulnerability? Or is it a combination of cost and criticality? So little tricky question, I would say. But then if you just understand with the clarity, you'll be able to get a right answer, which is going to be the DO of it. So another 5 seconds more, you can just click what is the relevant question that answer that you can think of. The degree of protection desired in any installation is predicted upon analysis of the following two factors. What are the two elements that you need to analyze? Yeah. So there are many people who are actually confused, I'm sure, in terms of cost. So I can analyze that people mostly get confused. Should I take cost as a parameter or not? So is it okay? So let me end the poll and let me share the results here. What we have right now. So 88% people in this room, they feel that criticality and vulnerability are the two components or factors that are going to be analyzed to identify the degree of protection. Yeah. So how do you do it? And congratulations, you are actually the on right side. These are the two critical components that are very important for the organization to look at it, and cost doesn't come in play. Cost is a purely commercial decision that is coming into the part of implementation. But if you have to really predict the degree of protection that is required, you need to see what's the criticality and what's the vulnerability. So thank you so much uh, for the question that you had contributed. So good. Um, so can I see any questions here, Afrin? Anybody has raised the hand? Okay, so there are no questions here. There are no hands that are raised by anyone. Um, yeah, Mr. Reddy, any questions? Because we have been silent since long. You have been very frequent question asking. So, uh, if you have any questions till now on understanding the security philosophy, otherwise we can move on. Yeah. Okay, so I think there are no questions, which is fine. So I believe people have understood what we have said and what we have taken so far. So let us take the discussion forward and understand the physical security little more detail in taking the element further from risk assessment or risk management perspective. And the discussion that right now we are doing is purely on physical security, and that too on a workplace environment. So we are not looking at a community right now. So of course, that's again part of the same discussion, same terminology can be adapted, but just considering the time constraint and the audience that we have, we are not getting into the community part. We are just restricting into the workplace also. So physical security is how do you plan as such. So there is a lot of similarity in fire management and security management. I mean, just uh, before we touching on the security element, we looked at the fire part, and then we also use the terminology called defend in place, right? If you remember or recall, we use the terminology called in terms of protection, defend in place. Now in security, it is also a similar philosophy. It's called defense in depth. So when you are going vertically down or downward direction, that is defense in depth. So it is not defined in place, it is defense in depth. So essentially, when you are using the term defense in depth in security management, that means we are trying to create multiple layers. We are not dependent on only one layer of security. When we are creating more and more layers, and that becomes your more stronger, more prudent workplace to handle any kind of a unevent or any kind of unsafe event that can cause the danger to the life or property. So it's important that you should also understand the terminology, which is defense in depth. It's a concept which is basically nothing but to secure your assets and protect your life through the multiple layers. So of course there is a engineering behind creating layers. It's not that you can keep on adding layers and then spend money on it. Then again, there is an engineering analysis, and that's how we are going to discuss how do you create layers and how do you define those layers? How do you go depth? Because it should not happen that you are going deeper and deeper and deeper and then you are lost. So you should go to the level of understanding your risk in a such a way that you are creating a layer adequately, optimized way. And that's how your engineering comes in play or your risk management comes in play. The building has suppose access control system in place. There is a fence. There is a guard outside. So this is nothing but the layer that we are trying to create. Or if you on top of it, if you add the automation or the cloud management or the various business control, again these are the layers that we are going to see based on the risk assessment that you are going to do. So I'm going to touch upon here the new concept. Let me just share the screen again back so that you can go back and look at it. Okay, so this is what today we are in now. Where after the completing the risk assessment or a vulnerability or threat analysis that we discussed, we are trying to do what assessing the risk. And assessing the risk will always and always come from defining the assets. Like as I mentioned too, there's a similarity between your fire and security. That's how in fire we always start with what occupancy classification. That means essentially nothing but what I'm trying to protect. Here in security management also it begins with assets. And most of the people actually make mistakes and they jump onto the step two and step three and creating that layers, but not understanding what is my asset. Now, when we are using the term asset, it is important that we need to have a very crystal clarity that asset means is an asset to the organization. An asset can be in different forms. It can be tangible. It can be intangible. There are many data centers wherein data is intangible, but that's most critical asset for them, right? There are many factories where people becomes asset. People, of course, by default, asset is everywhere. But then it is important that organization level, first and foremost exercise that they need to do is identifying and defining what is the asset that I have existed in terms of tangible and intangible. And then only we start the process of assessing that risk, identifying the threats and vulnerability, understanding consequences of it by looking at various scenarios, and that's how you complete the process of study. So it needs a lot of survey, it needs a lot of analysis, it needs a lot of tools, trackers, and that's how then you generate the basis of design that you need to follow in terms of physical security. Then, of course, there's a technical term that in engineering domain that we use, not only just basis of design, the concept design, how my concept will be in terms of security management as such. So those are the ingredients that will come from the study that I have done, put together the mitigation plan, and that's how the concept will develop. Again, the concept will again include what your hardware and software engineering requirements, right? So software means your video management software, is security management software, is integration. Hardware means physical systems or equipment that you see, which are going to be part of your mitigation plan. Then of course you are also looking at personal requirement, you are looking at the operational requirement, you are looking at support requirement, and you are looking at institution requirement. So these are the requirements that you are going to look at in terms of how this mitigation plan is going to take into consideration. Right? There are many plants or offices which are 24 hours. There are many plants which are not 24 hours, they are only general shift. So that's my operational requirement. There are many areas where you have basement, where you have a proper landscaping, maybe open land area. So these are my again installation requirement where I need to see that how my security is going to be planned. So these are various requirements that need to be analyzed at this design and planning stage, and that's how you are going to ultimately come up with a roadmap, and it's called design and integration system plan. So overall, if you look at it, this is a very very exhaustive work. It is not something that can be dependent on a vendor who is going to sell the product. And this is how it happens. Most of the even complex industries, when they want to implement security, they just limit to the security and access, and they call a vendor, okay, get me the cameras, get me my access control in these four doors, and that's about it. So when you look at this all put together, it is an engineering science, and it needs a lot of study. It needs a lot of analysis to come up with the right strategy of making the plan assets. So this is very important. Let's look at the concept of protection that we need to understand in terms of security management, and these are the layers that that every organization, whether it's commercial or industrial, need to take into consideration. First is security in depth, what we discussed, creating a layers. Security by design, uh, C4, which is command, computer control, and concept center. So this is again, I'll discuss one by one. Integrated system and CPTD, captured. So I will detail we will go in detail in understanding the each element and specifically captured. I mean, CPTD is the acronym that is being used, and it's nothing but crime prevention through environmental design. Very, very important element. I mean, there are many people who will take this um, concept as a theoretical concept, but it is not. It is a very, very uh, proven, and it is coming from a nature. And anything that comes from nature, if you look at my one of the session, that your technology, which will come from the engineering, and engineering comes from what? Nature. So this is what CPTAD or capted, what we talk about. So it is one of the very very important phase of all put together. So security depth, the first element that we see in the circle is nothing but the creating a layer. So in a facility, how I'm going to be, once I know my assets, I need to protect those assets. So how do I protect those assets? In what layers I need to have? Is it going to be my internal layers or outer layers? How I'm going to be creating my zones to reflect the levels of security so that it can take care of any kind of a deeper impact. So this is what nothing but security in depth concept, where you need to put into your design perspective. Security by design, the another element. So therein we are going to have a blend of mechanical, electrical, civil, structural, or architectural design, all put together, engineering, where, and then come up with the design philosophy, which is going to be taking care of your risk management attributes as well. So it has to be planned at early stage. Cost can be reduced from various parameters, if it is retrofitting or a greenfield project, by adding the additional charges changes, sorry, after the uh, building is completed, or during green building during construction only. Suppose you can always add a lot of design elements. So therein you can actually, sorry, therein you can reduce the cost by implementing those design elements during construction. But suppose if you miss out uh, to add, because you have not done the right design engineering, and then after construction, if you want to follow, you may end up in doing more expensive proposals. So It's important that we need to take into consideration the design elements during planning. And then C4, what we mentioned about in the slide is nothing but command, control, communication, and computer. Like in a security management system, if you look at it, command control center is the one that actually the heart of the entire security management aspect. So it's nothing but it is going to house your computer, which is going to look at all your video management. The entire security element will be communicating to each other. There are many elements which are controlling to each other, and that's how you are going to be uh, responding with a form of command. That means you are going to activate certain elements based on the input that you receive, and that's how the combination of four C's, it's called command, control, communication, computer. So again, this is a functional requirement. Essentially, it is very, very vital for a large and a complex organization, but it doesn't matter even if it is a medium organization, you still can create this fundamental at a minuscule nature, but the spirit will remain the same. Because ultimately, essentially, if you look at the security management, it will essentially need a computer management system. Without a screen, you cannot visualize what is going to happen. Unless until there's a proper way of communication, you'll not be able to make results out of it. And of course, you need to have a control mechanism in the whole system, and ultimately, it should result into a command. And that's how this forces are going to be part of your entire security management as such. And then the core concept that we also looked at is your integrated security management concept, which is basically nothing but you have a security system, you have CCD system, you have access control system, you have BOLAT, you have intrusion systems, you have perimeter protection systems. All these need to be cohesively work with each other. Because if you have these systems and you expect it to be independently work, then the result will not be desirable. So it is important that you need to see as a overall integrated concept, because then only you will be able to achieve your objectives of risk mitigation plan or your risk assessment plan that has been set out. So this has to be implemented. And again, there is a misconcept people have that if you have an integration, then probably you're going to end up in more cost. But the fact is you're going to reduce the cost by implementing the integration put together. There are a lot of benefits, there are a lot of features, and again, this is what your engineering means. And then lastly, it is important that we should understand what is the CPTAD or a CAPTED. CAPTED is nothing but has been acronym that has been used in the industry, which is crime prevention through environmental design. So what it does, what is, I mean, let's understand what is this complex word is about. This is nothing but the proper design or effective use of a built environment or any facility that you have, which can lead to what two things: reduction in the fear of the mind, and then incidences of crime that can happen or that can expected in the built environment, and ultimately it is going to enhance or improve your quality of life. So this is what CPTAD. It is aiming towards towards reducing the fear in the mind, reduction in the fear, and then reducing the crime incidences that may happen in the built environment, so that you can have a very healthy and quality life. So CPTD is a very very detailed and a very broad concept, and in physical security as such, this is not something new that we have came in. It is coming from ages. I mean, if you look at our old historical forts or all the monuments that we have, they have nothing but used all captive. It's like a moat. If you have a lot of king's palaces, they used to have a lot of lake around, so that uh, enemy cannot come and enter directly and attack to the fort as such. So that was a very very common uh, practice during our old days, where they used to use the environmental design as the design element to protect the life and property. And today, in a modern world, we are just adding these flavors and adding this lot of uh, glamour, so that it becomes more relevant today in the modern world, and it becomes more relevant. So it's nothing but it's a natural phenomena. How we are going to make use of that environmental so that it becomes your sustainable security strategy as such. So it is essentially incorporates the uh, physical design to create the sense of ownership, and then creating the personal and public space that you have. It is defining that in a very specific, like I mentioned about the king palaces. They used to have a differentiation very clearly that what is a public gathering and what is a private place. I mean, I was last year only, precisely this year, I was in Hyderabad and I visited a lot of forts, and there was a guide who was explaining all this thing, and it was really coming to my mind. And then since I'm in this domain, my actions and my thought process was aligning how they were thinking security in those days. Yeah, and it was very prudent ways of protecting their life and property, and they were nothing but the using the philosophy as captive. So this is what essentially that captive it means. I will probably go back to the screen, and then we can take this captive as the one that is very important. So um, this is what typically the facility that you can see that before they had this concept called captured been used like a typical facility which has not been assessed security point of view. But the same facility, if you look at it another way around, if you add the modern changes, you can make this as a facility which is going to clearly define what is the public and private. So it is nothing but we are not going to use any kind of a different or new systems as a security system as such. We are going to use the built environment and make the changes which is in such a way that it is going to create that psychological effect. Yeah, and this is nothing but a deterrent effect. I would say in another way around that this captive is going to be the tool that can be used by any industry, any segment, any facility by understanding your risk very well, by understanding your facility well, and that's how this clear differentiation that you can see. Now, if you look at the office building, how captive can be used, like your site location, where the site is located, is it going to be really clearly seen, or it is clearly protected, well protected. So site location, when you look at it or when you select it, it is again nothing but looking at your captured as one of the elements. Your external uh, view or external areas, what are the periphery that we have, and that is again defining the captured. Okay, so this is again important element that what are my plantation around, what are my building nearby around, is there any lake there, is there any water bodies there. So this is again external peripherals or landscaping, I would say, in modern world, which is again impacting your captive in your facility. Like typically office building, this is what we are trying to understand, where access points, how are you able to move people, authorized people, unauthorized people, freely, safely, securely. So what are those access areas there that people can actually come and work, and you are going to build that environment in such a way by creating doors and windows. Yeah. So this is again the captured element. Internal location, like you have suppose server room. You can't expect server room to be at the entrance of the building, right? Why it is not to be entrance of the building? Because that's the most critical area, even though by not by size but by its intangible asset that organization has. So you need to see that how the layout is going to be in a such a way that my most critical areas are not seen or not accessed or not visible by everyone and anyone. So this is again the mechanism that we are talking about, internal location. Lobby entrance. The moment you get in, you should get into the lobby. You should not get into the office straight away. And I've seen there are many congested offices where, because of the no planning or space constraints, you have technically get into directly into the private area or office directly. they may have considered or they may not have even visualized this. But again, they should know that there is a inherent risk that they have because the entrance is clearly accessible by anyone and everyone. So lobby entrances are again a prominent areas. Uh, like suppose reception specifically, if you look at it in the lobby, it is either kept open or with a glass. Why it is there? Because the moment there is a reception person, could be male, female, their screen of course may not be visible to everyone, so they need to have that kind of a screen which is going to be secured. But at the same time, their view is that they can actually look at in and out people. They can see the elevators, they can see service lobby, they can see who's coming in and who's going out. And that's how the clear visibility has been given to the reception desk because it is the natural surveillance. So if you look at it, this is very, very simple and common philosophy, but it's just a mindset that you need to develop in understanding this at the security perspective. It can be applicable to many industries as such, and that's how the architects have to actually make a very leading role in understanding this security aspect as such. And it has to come from user, you as a customer. You can't expect the architect to know what are your assets, what are your criticality of assets, and what is valid to you. So it is you who are going to give this input to the architect or a security professional that these are my assets and these are my valued assets. Because then the architect can develop, then the security professional can actually make use of those various elements and get into the design aspect. I have a very fantastic, very informative video to share with you. So maybe I'll take my Bluetooth off because then the voice may not be audible.
The idea that we can actually design out crime and nuisance behavior before it even happens. That this built environment that's around us here has a direct relationship on how people behave and act.
And so when you have a whole community and a whole city that's built on those principles, then you're creating a very safe city.
The power rests at municipal or town level. They have total control over how we build in our cities because they hand out the permits. So they really hold all the strings here. And if that's one message that we could get across, is to realize that as a municipality, I can control how things are planned and designed in my city or my town. And that then gives them a lot of credibility to encourage a developer to follow through with the CPTED principles.
To prevent crime is the ultimate objective, not to deal with it after the fact. So anything we can do to develop a crime prevention strategy is what communities do need to do.
We've been studying this, improving it for over 60 years. CPTED is the most effective crime reduction strategy when it's applied properly, in throughout the world. CPTED's in use in Japan, in Holland, in Great Britain, in Europe, in Brazil, in South America, certainly in the United States. So it's part of every single due diligence that goes into a building of a general nature in a municipality. The City of Vancouver, the City of Victoria, the City of Abbotsford, Prince George, Fort St. John, Mission, all communities where they've had some sort of CPTED training or that balloon has been floated up by someone have embraced it and they understand the benefits of it. So why wouldn't we do this? Why wouldn't we encourage every single development to include this principle in what we're building and designing and planning and zoning? Why wouldn't we?
Has a mix of residential and retail, typical of perhaps a Main Street that you might find in a more urbanized setting with sidewalks and nice retail stores.
And that creates more of a complete community and people engage in the street more. I think that's one of the biggest principles of CPTED. Big high glass windows, a lot of transparency into the retail, so it makes the retail more viable. Because,
Like I said, a little more urban.
good design is also safe design.
Yep, I think it's profitable too. Street furniture,
Right.
that would encourage people to linger.
SEPTED wants to know about the physical environment we're putting this structure in and that surrounding quarter-kilometer radius. And that's where relationships come in. So SEPTED can't be prescribed. There's no checklist we can generate. That's what makes it so exciting to use and practice in, because it's very creative. You have to get out into the real world and see what's actually going on here day and night before you build here. And then you can know if you can be extremely creative or if we need to be a little more conservative.
SEPTED is multidisciplinary. We have to work with other crime prevention programs. It is part of our overall crime prevention strategy. And we suggest, for example, to local authorities that they have an overall crime prevention strategy. And in that, they include all crime prevention programs that they're running, including SEPTED, including CCTV, including youth programs, seniors programs. It doesn't really matter, as long as people are sitting around the table and discussing the issue of crime prevention overall. SEPTED has more effect and is far more successful when it's included as an overall crime prevention program.
The value for the RCMP to be involved at this stage is enormous, because if we're faced with coming in at the end of the design phase when people have occupied it and we retrofit SEPTED measures, it can often have the opposite effects. You get into more of a siege mentality as opposed to
you may not need that if you did it right.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, because our success is at this level. If we've missed the opportunity and we tell an individual, well, you should probably put in a gate and a big sign saying no trespassing and no one allowed and you're under video surveillance, we've kind of missed the opportunity.
One of the main principles of SEPTED, which is simply called territoriality or ownership, if you like. And the idea is that everyone living in the neighbourhood takes some part in it, so that everybody has a sense of ownership of that place. And the idea simply is, okay, we own this place, we will look after it, we won't tolerate things that go the wrong way.
Implementing SEPTED principles is very important. Every single development that we have in the city goes through the process at the Design Advisory Council that works with the developer and the investor and his team in terms of looking at all of the SEPTED principles, making sure that they're implemented. It's very simple and it's very basic, and it's very important to implement on the front end.
I think this project shows an excellent model. We shared with the public at public information meetings as well as the public hearing.
Actually, the siting of this thing was pretty good. I asked myself, what is our target population doing? How are they going to get to our facility? So behavioral objective, and then the SEPTED for the tools. The rest of the landscape is open so that both the clients and the staff can see what's going on.
Excellent. There are really great sight lines. Again, good visibility from a number of different angles.
But we did look for a picket fence, hard to talk, and it's strong, and you can see through it. Chain link, it doesn't look good. It's easily climbed, and it's really a false security. Customers feel safe. They spend money, and this place is lit. It's bright. It's clean. It's everything that SEPTED says we should be doing. They've really maintained the landscape. It's compressed. It's low, so there's visibility throughout.
They have used glazing. The staff is now able to see exactly who's coming up on them, what's coming up on them, rather than having it all blocked.
The staff has control.
Good, clear sight lines, the pathway coming in.
It feels safe.
It does feel very, very safe.
We have people in our building department, we have people in inspections and parks and architects. They're all trained within those principles.
On the other side, the city side, if they're trained, if they're city planners, they're city architects, they're bylaw enforcement people, are all trained in SEPTED. They can review the plans that come across their tables with their different disciplines, along with the RCMP and local police departments. Their officers are trained in it. If they're all coming to the same table, they can also help to design out that opportunity for crime. It benefits the city in that they now have problem solvers in a group that they could then take and apply to a problem or a hotspot area that would benefit them down the road as well too.
Very open, very transparent, just creates a very comfortable feel.
There's a lot of clarity to it too. You can tell what you're supposed to do. They in fact have put a lattice screen around it, so it can't be occupied. It's a safe space. No one can conceal. It works.
As you can see, Jim, over here, again, they've eliminated the external hardware. Just one of those target hardening measures that we promote.
You know, signage is important from time to time. So here we have a clear indication that it's private property and just not anyone can come in here. This is a great space, Gerald. It's got
I
a
think
great.
so. I think it has some good natural surveillance.
So yeah, this has all the ingredients. Looks good, visible. It can be occupied. You want to occupy. Good deal.
Well, CEPTED is a clear example of where governments and private sector can partner together to develop a crime prevention strategy. It really has helped us because it's made us look at our development in our community, the areas that we have, and how do we make them safer, more visible, incorporating all of the CEPTED principles into it that really contributes to crime prevention.
Not only are there financial benefits, but there's also community benefits. There's also benefits for, individuals, vulnerable seniors, or women, walking down the street alone. All of those things contribute to making sure that you've got a healthy, safe community.
CEPTED plays a lot of different roles in a municipality and can benefit them by creating safer, successful environments that have long-term benefits that will generate an interest in that development from the community, from the businesses that are there, and the clients as well. So that the people who are there on site feel like they take ownership of it, and so it stops crime and reduces the nuisance behavior. And that's something every municipality can benefit from. Communities and developments, whether they're mixed use, retail, or commercial, or residential, can then be sustainable and defendable. And that's good for business, that's good for property values, tax base stays healthy and strong, and then you have less crime and less nuisance behavior.
Since we've implemented the CEPTED principles into our community and in everything that we do, we've definitely seen improvements all the way along.
At the end of the day, it's placemaking, I think.
Yes, it is.
And the degree to which you don't have a place, I think, is also the degree to which you have opportunities for crime. If there are there's no attraction for people, then you've got sort of dead space. And at the end of the day, if you have places that are more amenable to the public and have layered uses, then you're in a good spot.
It's just creating a better project, a higher level of design, more thought has gone into it, and that in the end, those buyers of that project have a safer environment, they have a better product, and they're building a better community because all these guidelines and principles has been placed into it.
No one wants to create an area that will be thrown into a state of disorder in 5 or 10 years, and yet that's what we're doing in many cities. It's all done by accident, but eventually, because of this relationship that exists between built environments and how people behave, if we don't design them well and plan them well and control them well, then they will eventually tip, and then you'll have a state of disorder, which no one really wants.
It's fairly common in third world countries, at least. It's certainly common in Europe and the UK, for example, Australia, New Zealand, over here. We even have a similar process evolving in Chile, of all places. So it's around the world, and it's good to see that happening. It's just becoming very, very common.
It's just part of doing business. It's about building a healthy community, and it saves money, and it's very simple, and it's very basic, and it's very important.
We want to design cities that are truly safer and sustainable, more successful, places where people want to come and do business, where people want to come and live and socialize and feel safe. They won't be here if they don't feel safe.
Good. So I believe this has really helped us to giving an overall perspective of how mixed use or maybe even safe and smart cities nowadays that we are getting in, how this CapTech can be developed as a concept so that it becomes a very safe and secure community. Yeah. Any questions, guys, on this understanding this concept? Um, because if we are clear about this concept, then I think we can probably uh, understand the security management easily. I mean, we looked at mostly all the commercial facilities or residential facilities. We call it mixed use facility, which are very very common nowadays in India. Even 100 smart cities is the project that we already kicked off by government of India, and that is going to be next 5 to 10 years. It is going to be the key, and this is what the CapTed is going to be the part of the entire security management as such. How people are going to move, what are their public areas, what are their private areas, how people are going to accessing the route. Everything will be very very clearly defined in the environmental design itself, so that you don't have to do anything. In fact, uh, jokingly I was telling my office boy that if you have a in our office we have a commercial office tower, uh, and if I just leave the newspaper on the doorstep, and if that newspaper is going to be there throughout the day on the weekend, that's going to be a safe office. I mean, that's just a small element that we can test whether your entire building element is safe or not. Doesn't matter whether we have it, but this is how you need to see that. We have seen a lot of gardens, and nowadays it's very common in most of the even corporate big offices developing the landscaping in a such a way that it will help people. Yeah, so how your garden management is going to be there, how your trees are going to be there, whether somebody can hide behind, somebody can do a smoking behind. This is how basically it is going to be captured. Industrial building, if you look at it, which is again a very high risk of employee theft, burglary or robbery or any commercial leakage or surveillance or arson. Using this captured principles, you can actually, for industrial building also, there is a lot of opportunities where you can reduce the crime rate and you can make the healthy space. Like your traffic, how your people are going to come in and out. Is the need two separate gate that you have provided in industrial building? That is again the part of design. Perimeter, how clearly well defined your perimeter boundaries are going to be with landscaping, fence and walls and etc. Again, that's part of your captain. Path of travel, whether are you allowing people to move in a separate direction, whether authorized people or unauthorized people. Like typically in a mall, sorry, mixed use development building, when you have a lot of your residential building and hotel building and mall all put together, then again path of travel becomes very very important for identifying whether what is public and private. Like in industrial building also it happens. There is a separate lane for visitors, there is a separate lane for contractors, there is a separate lane for employees. So you can actually make a demarcation and then define how I'm going to be managing and monitoring those movement as such in their facility. Building shell, minimize the openings in the building shell. Lobbies, entrances should be very clearly defined so that you can have a natural ventilation, at the same time natural surveillance. People can see it throughout the facility. How the monitoring is going to be there in industrial building. Arrange the exterior doors used as the emergency exit, be alarmed, place under surveillance, monitored by security staffs. Again, that is going to give you kind of a look and feel of the facility, and especially industrial facility where it can become a more secured place. Your service door, usually it is not coming from the main entry, it is usually from a rear entry. So you can have service doors from outside to lead directly to the service areas to minimize the interior, because they don't have to come and mix up with the main traffic. So there is a separate gateway that you are going to give so that the service people can be differentiated. Your shipping and receiving areas, there are a lot of manufacturing company, we have a lot of godowns where this activity is going to happen. So how you are going to allocate that area? Are they differentiated? Are they separated? Again, that will reduce your vulnerability or risk of mixing up with the people. Like typically you must have also seen driver lounge or waiting room available or kept in the industrial building. But if you don't provide the toilet attached to the driving waiting room. They have to go all the way inside area to use the toilet. So again, you are allowing them to mix with the main occupancy. Again, that's again deficiency in capted. Trash. If you are designing a trash or disposal area, they should not have dependency to take any specific compactors or insulators inside the building. They should not leave the building. They should remain and do the entire thing remaining in the disposal area itself. Research and development department, like typically R&D department is away from the main circulation or main occupancy. Why? Because that's more that's more vulnerable to the information leak or any patented information that we may have. So ideally,
Hemant
if
sir,
you are, yeah,
your volume is little low.
okay, volume is little low. Okay,
Yes.
I will just come little ahead, because or otherwise I will go back to my.
Oh, yeah. So now we will be a little better. So is it better now?
No,
Hello?
sir.
Okay.
No, sir. A little more louder.
Already is it better?
No, sir.
Hello?
Hello.
I think I can't hear you. Okay. So what I was talking about the R&D
Hemant sir.
specifically, laboratories, they have to be separated. They have to be away from the main occupancy so that there is no depression that can happen. Employee entrances, that has to be specifically demarcated. That has to be clearly defined so that it is away from the parking lot, or it is not mixing up with the rest of the audience as such. So there are a lot of interiors or architect element that you can develop, including your HR offices where you expect a lot of uh, candidates to come in. In that case, you should have the administrative office at the entrance only, so that you don't need to expect the candidates to go inside the facility, so that there is no kind of a mixing that can happen, or elevators or warehouses. There are n number of uh, uh, n number of captains that you can develop into the facility so that it becomes a very, very safe and secure building as well. So, sorry, my throat is okay. So let me just go back to the another part is here. We discussed about captains, but then there is another element that you need to understand is your physical protection system principles. So there are 5 Ds that you must take into consideration. I'll tell you very quickly. Those are basically deter, detect, deny, delay, and either defend or respond. So you can have this combination of this. Of course, there is an extension to it, recovery and analysis. That is all extension. But fundamentally, everyone should be able to understand this physical protection principles in 5 Ds. Right now, what we discussed about captive is nothing but a deterrent. Because the moment you put as a signage that you are under CCTV surveillance, or beware of dogs, private entrance, okay, this is restricted area. This is nothing but creating a psychological barrier for anyone, everyone to follow that rules. Actually, that is for good boys to follow. So there is, you are trying to reduce the uh, unsafe action that can happen just because you are creating that psychological alert or signage here. So there are a lot of, in India, in fact, it's very common. There are a lot of jewelries. You can see that there is no camera, but you can just see the sign, you are under surveillance. Because they know the mindset in India specifically that even if somebody can read, at least he'll be carefully not dare to do any kind of a step, and it works. So this is very important and basic element. How you are going to create your deterrent effect. Like D50 also, metal detector, a security guard standing in the entrance only with the metal detector. It is definitely going to allow person to move out in case he has
or any kind of attack to the facility or robbery or theft and other things. So this is nothing but you are trying to create X-ray baggage in the internal system. These are all various elements that can actually contribute very largely in deterring factors. Detect how we are going to be making people aware that this detection device can do that. I mean, that's what your CCTV surveillance is going to come into play. Access control is going to come. Yeah. And in fact, further access control is going to deny because if you don't have authorized card, then probably you will be denied. You will not get an access to the server, you will not get an access to the data center, you will not get access to the chief engineer office just like that. Right? So there is a denial also because you are going to have this access control system in a way that it will limit and only allow the authorized people to come in. Delay, another example, by creating a barrier, physical barriers in the form of bollard, boom barrier, or walls, or pedestrian access, or maybe water body, anything that is considered as a physical barrier, so that there is an obstacle for certain people to get into the facility. So this is nothing but your delay, which is going to be contributing in your overall security management. And then last is defense. Response mechanism. Your command control center, which is going to be hard with your security management, that will pick up all the signals, and then it will subsequently alert the police, or it will alert the security guard, or it will alert police people to log the areas. So all this based on your specific response plan or emergency plan, you can follow through and create that mechanism in the organization so that it becomes a response. It becomes your emergency response to the system. So these are all 5 basic things, 5 Ds that are fundamentally important to be applied and adapted by every organization. And further, of course, the AD goes beyond in terms of your analysis and recovery. That means once everything happens, how we are going to be coming back to your BAU, business as usual stage. That's how this another element or extension to the 5 element. How we are going to quickly recover, resilient, and come back to your normal position, and that's how you are going to be the business stage. Another consideration that you need to take into part is your implementation cost. Overall, once you understand everything, then how it's going to implement it, how it will be implemented in a phases, what is going to be maintenance cost, what are my impact to the consequences of state and hazard, what are the likelihood from preventing threats. I mean, although I implemented it, but what are the chances that it will still prevent the threat not to happen? Otherwise, then it is a waste of resources or money. Attracting an asset. I mean, once I define asset, once I know value of asset, how meaningful those assets for me. Does it, again, important cost element, does the cost is exceeding my benefit? That is what the cost benefit analysis needs to be done before we get into the facility. And then, of course, we have to understand that risk is never static. It is going to be changing frequently. That's why it is important that every organization must review the security strategy periodically, and that period can be specific to your organization. It can be quarterly, it can be annually, it can be semi-annually. But definitely it cannot be more than a year. People have to invest on the training so that you can get the entire cohesive approach as such that people are very conversant with the security management aspect so that they can follow the safety. And that can only happen when you have a good training. Security survey, that has to be a constant exercise by the security department so that you can capture any gaps. Processes, procedures to be audited internally, externally, so that you can refine those processes and you can make it more prudent, make it more relevant, and make it more applicable. And that's how the top management has to review periodically in the form of risk assessment so that they can make this plan very, very quickly. I just wanted to give you very quickly the last piece of this session, and which are really, very important here to listen carefully. These are the 5 steps which are very, very important for any organization of any size, that if they want to really make their security plan as an integrated physical security plan. I'm using the word integrated. I'm adding the word integrated, but security system as such, if you just look at in a standalone way, then it will definitely not solve the problem. It must have an integrated approach. And how this can be developed, these are the five steps. First and most important is that your facility that you need to see that what is my benchmarking, what is my model security facility. I mean, when we are actually in your workplace, it can be your manufacturing plant, it can be your office tower, it can be your residential tower, it can be your R&D plant or whatever it may be. Wherever you are, you have to first and foremost understand what is the benchmarking level that we are looking at. Because unless you visualize, at an organizational level where I need to go, probably then nothing is going to be accumulated at the down level. So the first and foremost step, it is important as to develop the integrated security management is to understand where I need to go, what's my destination. Then the journey will happen automatically. So that's my benchmarking. Second, once I know the benchmarking, once I know the goal, or once I know the destination, then probably it is easy for me to look at what is the gap. So the second step is gap analysis. Comparing with my destination, comparing with my model security benchmarking, I need to see what is my gap there, what I'm trying to protect, how I'm going to protect, what is my value, how I'm going to be evaluating those everything. So these are the various questions that you can ask and come up with your analysis so that you can develop your own integrated security management. So this is very important. You have to see that gap analysis. And gap analysis only will come not necessarily internally, it will come from the external independent specialists. Because you yourself cannot understand the gaps clearly. It has to be coming from the external guy who doesn't know you, who doesn't understand your facility, but he can add the fresh blood into it and give you the complete analysis in the form of gap analysis so that you know exactly what the gap for achieving to that benchmark that you have set. And then third step, of course, gap closure. Once I know the gap, how do I mitigate that risk? What are my plans? What are my investments? What are my security elements? Maybe I need to put in CCTV systems here. Maybe I need to have perimeter system here. Maybe I need to expand my security guard to this level. Maybe I need to have physical bollards there. I need to use my some of the captured elements to bridge that gap. So these are all gap closures. Once I know the gap, how do I mitigate that gap in the form of various elements put together? Again, that becomes your integrated security management. And then fourth, important that once you have all these steps 2 or 3, you know answers, you have to just put together as a strategic plan. Once you know the answer, once you know the gap, once you know the mitigation plan, it becomes a very, very strategic plan which you can implement further. So the strategic plan which is going to be combination of your benchmarking, gap analysis, and way to go. So once you develop that strategic plan, then it's easy for you to implement it the way it has to be required. You can implement it in phases. It is not to be done at a one stage. Again, it has to be consciously and taking the informed decision by bridging the gap. But because if the gap is too high, there is no way that you can bridge the gap in fortnight, in 6 months. It needs many days, many months, many years. But then as long as you have that strategic plan to mitigate that risk and you have defined a timeline to bridge that gap, maybe it can be 2 months or 2 years, you can implement it. And that's how the whole mechanism works, and that's how it is a systematic plan we can call it a strategy. So as a security system, people still consider, most of the people still consider that limited to only physical access. Not. This is how it is. So it's a very, very detailed way of looking at your facility in a such a way, and that too, facility which is little complex. Typically a mixed facility, typically a large plant, typically a large facility. So it is very, very important that people have to analyze this very quickly and understand it. So any questions so far, you can more questions people are afraid of asking questions or they are on low energy mode. Usually I get a lot of questions. Not from maybe, not from something. Okay, fair enough. So good. But I had invited one of my clients to talk about it. I think we so if you look at it overall perspective, I mean, we have captured a lot of areas. How you put together your security management plan and the security management plan have to be integrated. In terms of security system also, if you look at it, security system specifically comprises of cameras, but then you have to understand fundamentally what this CCTV actually is going to do. And it is a very detailed, systematic way of developing your CCTV plan. But essentially, fundamentally, your cameras are going to do three functions typically. One is to obtain the visual information about something that is happening in and around, that is live in your facility, or it will also give you information that something has happened. You can always go to your screen, you can go to your record and find out what has happened. And typically, it will be required in case of any event to investigate something that robbery, something that theft, something that event happened. You will go back and go to it. So that's a very, very important element of your CCTV system. And third, of course, deterrent. As I mentioned, as a deterrent activity to reduce the undesirable activities. The moment somebody knows that there is a camera, it is not easy for any person to do any kind of a theft or robbery because he knows it will be. So these are three elements fundamentally for any CCTV system that is given. But then also I need to clear the air here in terms of understanding the CCTV management because this has to be evaluated as a system. You have to take into perspective this as a system. It is not just like a camera. Cameras are going to do a job, but without peripheral devices like monitors, without integrating mechanism as the software, this is like a dump. You are just expecting a guard to stand there and you expect that to do a surveillance. But if you give the information, if you give ammunition, if you give intelligence to that security guard to do the natural surveillance, then that becomes more meaningful. And that's how it is applicable for a camera also. Second application is very important that you need to understand, and I'm sure you must have heard from Mr. Meena last week when we were talking about the incidents of China. One project in China where client asked it to deploy cameras everywhere and anywhere. But what was the logic behind it? That you need to understand what is the application. And that will come from where? It will come from defining a thing. So without even asking that, understanding what is the need, just because a manufacturer or a vendor or OEM has that feature and you try to deploy those features or implement that feature and put the cameras everywhere and anywhere, it is meaningless. So the user, you as an owner, you should understand that what is your need and what is the equipment selection that you need to have, and that will come only from you, not from the user. So it is important that you need to see that application choose the equipment, not the other. If it is a utility area, then you have to specify that this is my utility area. This is going to be normally kept in locked manual condition. Now we know how to monitor it. So you have to understand this very, very importantly. Not that you have to just depend on camera, fancy brochures, and then say that okay, this camera everywhere, that camera here. No, let the equipment decide the application, then the application decide the nature. And third important thing about this, you have to, when you design it, you have to design it in a generic way. You cannot be specific based on the vendor model number or vendor make or kind of thing. So best system design does not necessarily uh, capture the specific model number. It is generic. That okay, this is my feature camera, this is my monitoring camera, this is my detection camera, this is my inspection camera. So based on the function, based on the utility, you can actually design a system. Then you can follow, and then you can see what is the model, what is the make that can match that requirement. So that's a very important element of putting together. And then another element that it is important that design for the best option first. People actually start with a low and then they say, okay, this is not going to meet my requirement. Maybe I need to upgrade. And by that time they start implementing it, they cannot upgrade it. And it has happened in my interaction with many clients that their current system does not meet their requirement 100%. Just because they had some constraint or some mindset constraint rather than budget, that they started with a basic minimal and now they can't upgrade their system. So design for the best option first and then analyze it in terms of budget, in terms of cost benefit cycle, understand the maintenance cost, what I mentioned about the design strategy, what I already integrated with high element, then curtail what is not required. Remove that extra element, slice it, make it more relevant, make it easy. It has to be sustainable. So this is the approach we should have top down rather than going from a down stuff. And then lastly important that don't think the system is can build at once. It has to be modular. Make your system in a such a way that it becomes modular. It could be your head end, it could be your tail end. Because once you design it in generally, your facility can actually expand. Your risk is going to be changing every year, and according to your system can be changed based on that. So once the design is completed, it doesn't matter if installation may be switched over several budget years, it will take months, years, whatever it is, but make sure that you have a very clear roadmap and your system is such that it is modular and scalable. So that's a very important piece that you guys need to understand. Once we understand this philosophy, then probably it is very easy for you to implement any specific time. But it's very important. The gist of today's discussion, what I want to tell you is that understand what I'm focusing. Asset definition is very important. And once you understand what are my assets, then only you can actually guide architects or design professionals or security institutions to implement that plan. Because asset value, you know, nobody else will know. Then who are my adversaries? Where the threat is coming from? Whether it is coming from internal, whether it's coming from external. So those are the elements that you need to understand and see that how I can use my tool that is CPTD that we discussed, or maybe design-based threat, which is another tool that can help and identify the likely adversities and make more solution which is going to be applicable to the system. So that is very important. Analyzing the threat, where it is coming from, because once you know that, then probably you can see that how and where I am vulnerable. What is my weakness? What is my level of security that I am in, and what is my consequences, and how do I bridge that gap based on the benchmarking that I decide. So that is very important. So vulnerability only can come when you know the risk coming from there. And once you know the vulnerability, then you know the consequences of it. Once you know the consequences of it, then you can set your priorities. Because you know that consequences is very large, very catastrophic, very huge, very broad at an organization level. Then it becomes your priority. Like for that matter, people. If the people is going to be vulnerable and then it is impact is going to be huge, then your priority is to protect your life. So priorities can change, but then that has to come from your vulnerability and the risk that is coming from it. And then of course you can always see that where I have to get compared, what's my gap analysis, how do I do it, what's my gap closure, and that is what we discussed that the management plan, and you can make your integrated security management plan. So I think overall I wanted to give you a very broad perspective in terms of understanding your integrated security management plan, not the just standalone management plan, so that it becomes a very very engineered approach and worthy approach for you to do it. So if there are no questions, we will end with the session with leaving the question for you to analyze. First question: how Capted is impacting your faculty? Do a retrospect this weekend and understand what we learned today to your faculty, how it can be applicable to you, how what is the impact of it. What is your model security facility and what is the benchmarking? Where do you want to go? What's your destination? Many people actually they must never think about it. So it's important that you have to ask this question, and then of course you can always ask very important the main question is what are my security gaps based on the captured and based on the models that I have thought or imagined. What is the level of gap? Is it too high? Is it too low? So these are three awakening questions. I will leave it to you guys, and then you can go back to your facility, get some retrofit, share your reviews next time we can meet up on Sunday, and probably we can do that. So if let me just again see the questions that because see why I'm asking again and again questions, because I don't want people to go in a ambiguous way and leave those thoughts, you know, open-ended. So please feel free to ask questions. Anything doesn't matter. It can be basic questions. It can be hard. Not necessarily that I will know all the questions instantly, but I will definitely see that it is addressed sooner or later. So please make it interactive. So it becomes very beneficial for both of us. This is the journey that we are looking at, and this is not just one time we are looking. We are going to meet each other every Sunday, 11:30 this year, complete year. Okay, so make sure that I also get a help from you, favor from you by not getting any services from us. I never market anything here on this forum, but what I want your favor from you is that please make sure that next Sunday, at least you bring two people along with you. It could be a colleague, it could be a community, it could be a network, whatever it is. Make sure that you capture the link available in the chat option, spread that word, bring it to more attendees so that our chain becomes more longer and we can reach out to more people and make this gap better. So with this note, I really thank you. Let's end this session with our ritual with national anthem. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. We will see you next Sunday, 11:30.